On today's installation video, we'll be showing you how to install a RaceChip on the Volvo T6 2.0 turbo and supercharged motor, available in many different Volvo models. Before installing the RaceChip, please wait until your engine is cool enough to work on. Put your parking brake or emergency brake on. If your vehicle is equipped with an alarm system, please disable it. Pop the hood, roll up the windows, close the doors, and press the lock button on your key fob and move that key fob 30 feet away. You're gonna wait about 10 minutes after for all the electricity to clear from underneath the hood. First step on the installation here is to remove the engine cover. Now you can use a T40 Torx to remove the couple of screws, or you can just use your fingers. We found that they're pretty loose from the factory already, and you can just twist these off. For the T6 application, our A is going to go to our turbo boost pressure sensor right here. And our B connection will go to our manifold pressure sensor right here on the side of the engine. Then we're going to go over to the RaceChip box, go ahead and open it up, and we will grab our wiring harness first. Next on the installation is to install our A to the turbo boost pressure sensor. Please note, before we go down there, you'll see that there's a 45-degree angle cut on one side and a flat peg on the other. When we're plugging it in, we want the flat peg to go into the cut out of the plug, and the 45-degree angle cut will go onto the locking tab side of the plug. Now to unplug the turbo boost pressure sensor, we're going to press down on the back of the sensor, plug itself, there'll be a little locking tab, we'll pull back. Next up is to plug the female end of the RaceChip wiring harness into the OEM sensor plug that we just unplugged. Again, the 45-degree angle will go on to the locking tab side. Next is to plug the male end of the RaceChip wiring harness directly into that OEM sensor right here, and make sure you press it on until it clicks and locks. With the A connection securely made, next we'll move to our B connection, going to our manifold pressure sensor, or our MAP sensor. So just like the A connection, we're going to press down on the locking tab on the back of the OEM sensor plug. Then we'll take our female end of our RaceChip wiring harness and plug that in, making sure we push it on until it clicks and locks. And we'll take the male end of the RaceChip harness and plug it directly into the OEM sensor, plugging it in until it clicks and locks. Then we're going to go back over to our RaceChip box and grab our GTS, RS, or S. And for the last time, we're going to return to the box. Go ahead and open the smaller rectangular white box to get our locking tabs and our zip ties. Next on the installation is to install our 4 mounting tabs onto our RaceChip. Now the really nice thing about these mounting tabs is it allows you to use our longer supplied zip ties to mount the RaceChip either vertically or horizontally with the zip ties. And if you ever need to remove the RaceChip for service or warranty work, instead of having to cut the zip ties and then re-zip tie again, instead you can press the locking tabs on the 4 corners of our mounting tabs, and it'll actually release the mounting tabs and leave the zip ties and tabs in place and just remove the RaceChip. Now we're going to remove our deactivation plug. It's really important that you hang on to this. If you ever need to revert the car back to stock and want to leave the wiring harness in place, you can place the deactivation plug in place of the RaceChip. To remove the deactivation plug, we're going to pull to the left on the FCI plug until it releases the deactivation plug. And then we're going to insert the RaceChip directly into the same slot the deactivation plug just was. Now it's really important the first time we install the unit, we have no lights light up on the LED screen. If you have the RS to the S, we want no green light to illuminate. We don't want any power going to the engine bay the very first time we install the unit. Now using the longer 2 zip ties supplied by RaceChip, we're going to mount the unit in place. Now when we're mounting the RaceChip, we want to stay away from any of the hot or moving parts, as well as we want to be someplace that's hard for moisture to get to. So generally somewhere near the stock ECU or near the headlights is a good place, as this is often a hard place for moisture to get to. So for this application, we found a nice good spot right here in front of the ECU on a couple existing electrical lines. It's really important that if you are going to zip tie the electrical lines like this application, we don't zip tie too tight to pinch off the electrical lines. Same thing with fluid lines too. If you're going to zip tie under the fluid lines, they should be cold fluids, and as well as we don't want to be too tight with the zip tie to pinch off the flow of that fluid inside the line. So now with the RaceChip securely in place, we're going to use the 4 shorter zip ties to mount and route the harness away from any hot or moving parts. As you see, for the B connection, we kept it off the coolant lines down here, and for the A connection, we want to make sure we stay away from the radiator fan. So we used a couple of the zip ties to go ahead and mount that directly to the turbo inlet pipe, and then a couple more zip ties up here to keep everything nice and tight. Last but not least, we're going to trim the excess ends of the zip ties to make everything have a nice OEM look before we reinstall the engine cover. Last step here is to reinstall the engine cover and tighten it back down. Start in the default setting of the RaceChip for the first time you test drive the car. If everything works great, you can then move the RaceChip to the next level up. Be aware that the car needs some time to adapt before releasing the full performance upgrade. Now, get out, drive, and enjoy your RaceChip.